Hello and welcome to the Performance Physique podcast. My name is Arj and I am your head coach. This podcast is all about helping you with your running, your nutrition and your training. We take the jargon out of sports science to help you realise your goals faster than ever before. Let's get started.
So I thought, do you know what? This is actually a really interesting topic because...
I think she's amazing.
One story that really caught my attention this week.
My story relates to a particular TV
It's going to take away a lot of jobs.
Week in Review.
Exactly. It's time for Week in Review. I always love this part of the show. It's where I'm joined live in the studio with two Londoners discussing the stories that matter to them. And I always like for you to weigh in as well. So you can send us a voice note on WhatsApp, 08000 321 333. Start the message with London. Both my guests today I've not seen in a while, so it's so lovely to have them both back in the studio. Joining me is activist and writer Philip Baldwin. You can get more details for him on Instagram and on X on Philip C. Baldwin, and also fitness coach Arj Thiruchelvam. You can get more details for him on Performance Physique on all social media. Arj, Phillips, lovely to have you both here.
Thanks for having me back.
Thank you for having me on the show.
It's good to have you both back in the studio. I've been just talking about this earlier on, and the fact that feels that Christmas has totally arrived now. Are you in that kind of
100%.
Thought process yet?
That panic is arriving. No presents. No presents yet.
But you haven't done the shopping. I mean, it's Black Friday tomorrow, isn't it? So I think that's one area. But what about yourself? Are you looking forward to the festive time of year?
So I don't get to start thinking about Christmas until after World AIDS Day.
Okay, so that's it's interesting that, because I think for all of us will have a particular date in the diary. My birthday is 12 days before Christmas. So in my head, I've always felt, no, Christmas begins after my birthday. But I now have a 7-year-old and she does not care about Mummy's birthday, which means that, the Christmas tree's up, the elves have arrived and it's all happening. But look, there's an array of stories that you've both brought in today. So let's delve straight into it, shall we? Arj, I was really intrigued by your first story, kind of keeping in tone with us talking about this festive time, and this was the BBC's Sports Photos of the Week. Share more, because you're going to have to describe this because we're on the radio.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so I'm sure we're all looking at the news and we're hearing the news, and it's a really challenging time for a lot of people out there around the world, and we need to hear these stories, and that's really important. And every now and again, I think we need to take a step back and appreciate the positive things that are occurring. And this week, the BBC published some sports photos. I'm obviously massively biased, by the way, Philip. I just love sports.
Exactly.
You'll notice I bring everything back to sports.
Yeah.
But basically, the BBC have published a series of photos from around the world, different sporting events, and it just demonstrates beautiful, tough resilience and moments of real challenge and adversity, which I think is always a reflection of society and what we have to do. Yeah. And there were a couple of real standout photos which were actually submitted. So if you head onto the BBC website, you'll notice this is like on the homepage halfway down. There's a couple of really amazing photos. One from a Chinese ice skating duo, and this photo is of a male and female.
Wow.
Yeah, you're looking at it right now.
Yeah, go on.
Unbelievable. So this photo basically demonstrates the male skater tossing the female skater right up into the air. She is horizontal. She's performing a pirouette. And, if you're looking at this on your phone, if you turned your phone landscape, you'd actually think she's just vertical standing on the ice.
Yeah.
The reason this really struck me, not just because of the maneuver, is because recently, for some reason, I've found some strength and conditioning posts of ice skaters and the kind of training they do, and it just makes me feel like being a child again, jumping off your parents' furniture, trying to spin around. I'm not comparing that to being an elite ice skater, but it was beautiful. And there was another moment in there of the Orlando Pride team, which is WSL, American soccer team, and they're having a team talk, and there is Marta, one of their players. She is rallying her team, and it is an amazing moment of, right, we're up against it here. We need to succeed. And I think if you're struggling and you need a bit of inspiration, you need to look at that photo.
Oh, it's a beautiful photo. And this particular, and thank you, you've done so well with the description of it as well. It's Yu Chin Wang and Li Zhu competing in the pairs free skating at the Hawaii Cultural and Sports Center in China only a couple of days ago. Are you into sports yourself, Philip?
I train at the gym.
Okay, fantastic.
However, Otherwise, I don't participate in many sports.
But do you follow sports?
Intermittently.
Okay.
I really enjoyed looking at the pictures.
Yeah.
I thought they were beautiful. What I took away from them was the diversity that was displayed in the pictures.
Yeah.
And I think something else that you touched on, sometimes it's good in terms of escapism to look at something beautiful, because at the moment there are so many challenges that we're facing in the world.
Yeah, totally. There's an image here that kind of struck me. Partly, I have to tell you, because I can't do this, and whenever I look at any type of sports which are, outside in the cold, if you're skiing or ice skating, I just wish I could do it. It's of Keely Cashman of the United States skiing during a downhill training session in Copper Mountain in Colorado, and literally Keely is midair, and I just keep thinking, if that was me, I would just fall flat on my face. But it's those moments I think you're right, there's a lot of power in photography. So if you get a chance, do check out these. It's called In Pictures, Sporting Photos of the Week, as you've mentioned, Arj, on the BBC website. So let's delve to the next story then, shall we? And you mentioned it briefly earlier, so I'd really like to delve into it more. And this is taken from the BBC website as well, Philip. It's referencing the initiatives in Bristol, and you wanted to discuss World AIDS Day, so let's do that.
Well, so it's World AIDS Day on the 1st of December.
Yes.
And World AIDS Day is incredibly important to myself because I'm actually living with HIV. There was a really incredible series of images in Bristol, and they showed different people living healthily with the virus. And I think that's one of the most important things that we need to get across this World AIDS Day, that it's possible to live healthily with the virus, to challenge the stigma surrounding HIV, but also that HIV can impact everyone.
Sure.
We're now in a situation where more heterosexuals than gay and bisexual men are diagnosed with HIV each year.
Some people will be really surprised by that particular statistic. And actually, just referencing the billboards that you're talking about, Philip, these billboards have been displayed around Bristol, North Somerset and South Gloucestershire as well. One of them, I'm just going to read it for our listeners, says, as a mum, taking medication meant that HIV did not get passed on to my son. So a lot of these particular images are firstly striking images, but the billboards include messages, one of which, the key message is undetectable equals untransmittable, to remind the public that people who are receiving medication for HIV cannot pass the virus on to others. There's still a lack of knowledge around this, Philip. What's your thoughts?
I completely agree with you. We've had these incredible medical advances. So, for example, undetectable equals untransmittable, or U equals U, means that the viral load of someone living with HIV or the HIV is so suppressed within their body that it is undetectable and they can't pass the virus on. And that's even the case, for example, in terms of when in the case of a mother and child. So we've had these incredible medical advances, but for a lot of people, they still perceive AIDS and HIV to be a death sentence, and it's exactly the opposite.
Let me bring you into this conversation, Arj. What's your take? What's your thoughts?
Yeah, well, there's this show actually, Shay, which taught me U equals U. I think it was maybe March time, one of the weekend reviews, and the other guest actually informed me of that. And I think it's the messaging. I think it's entirely the messaging. I had never come across that. Maybe it is taught in PSE in schools these days, but certainly not when I was at school. And
Yeah.
I'm not very old.
But actually, I'm thinking about it too, and same here. That reference point we've just made, U equals U, which, as we've just said earlier, undetectable equals untransmittable. It's not something I remember being taught either.
Not at all. And I think if that was just the tagline and that was just printed and dispersed around society, in our public health forums, I think it would make an awful lot of difference and open a lot of more discussions and communications around it.
It's one of those things, isn't it? The more that we talk about it, we raise awareness. And it's very right, Philip, as you've mentioned as well, that we discuss it ahead of World AIDS Day, which is on the 1st of December. So this coming Sunday is when it's taking place. Would you like these type of billboards, if you want to call them, these posters? Because these were actually displayed digitally as well as on bus stops in Bristol and North Somerset and South Gloucestershire. Do you think that would kind of work somewhere here in London, maybe?
I think that would be really positive. I mean, the more people who learn about U equals U and the other HIV prevention tools that we have, for example, pre-exposure prophylaxis, which is a pill that can be taken daily or on demand by an HIV negative person, which prevents the transmission of HIV, or post-exposure prophylaxis, which is a pill which can be taken up to 72 hours following exposure to HIV diagnosis, and that can also prevent HIV transmission. So it's increasing awareness around these scientific developments, and I think that's how we're going to finally eliminate new HIV transmissions by 2030, and I think that's still achievable in the UK.
It's important, isn't it? Those stats you've given and what we as a society as a whole are working towards, especially as you've mentioned in terms of the aim to get to that point for 2030. It's not far off, and thank you for bringing this story and talking about it on the show this afternoon. Stay with me. Going to continue having a chat with Arj and with Philip. If you'd like more details with regards to World AIDS Day, you can go online. Also, there's a lot of information, as Philip was mentioning, on the BBC website as well, bbc.co.uk.
So I thought, you know what, this is actually a really interesting topic because...
I think she's amazing.
One story that really caught my attention this week.
My story relates to a particular TV
It's going to take away a lot of jobs.
Week in Review.
3:35, continuing with Week in Review this afternoon on BBC Radio London. Joining me in the studio, I've got activist and writer Philip Baldwin alongside fitness coach Arj Thiruchelvam. You can find Philip on Philip C. Baldwin, and that's PH, by the way, on social media, and also Performance Physique for Arj on socials as well. Thanks for staying with me, guys. Your eyes lit up, Philip, when you reminded us of the date today. What's happening in America?
Happy Thanksgiving to all the US people who are listening to BBC Radio London.
Oh, do you know, I had to pause when you reminded me. I thought, oh my gosh, I have celebrated Thanksgiving, and it's all slowly coming back to me years ago in New York, many moons ago, and it is massive. It's huge in America. Like, everyone is off, all the families get together, there's tons of food. They'll have, like, a pumpkin pie, they have the Thanksgiving parades. But here in the UK, we're like, oh, okay, it's not really a thing for us, is it?
What I found interesting about it is it's obviously such a huge cultural phenomenon, and it's not just marked in the USA but also in Canada, for example.
That's correct, yeah.
And it reminded me of how little we are taught in the British education system about US history.
True.
Because obviously it dates back to the 1620s and 1630s, when the Pilgrims and settlers were marking Thanksgiving, initially in Virginia, but it's something which is so important culturally in the USA, but we're barely aware of it. And it was only because of Instagram and my other social media platforms, that I actually remembered that Thanksgiving was today.
Yeah, I mean, thank goodness for social media, hey. That's literally how I keep up to date with a lot of friends' birthdays. I'm not going to deny. I hope my best friend's not listening, but I always forget. And then I'm like, oh yes, thank God I've seen it on Instagram. Arj, what's your take on Thanksgiving?
What's Thanksgiving, Philip? So is it the separation? I'm going to be completely open. I'm very good with sports and science.
Yeah.
Not very good with anything else.
Yeah.
So is it the separation or the gaining of independence? Is it related to that from Britain, or is it all about settling on the land from the Native Americans?
So it's about it marks when the first settlers, the Puritans, arrived in the USA.
Right, okay.
And prior to that, there were days of Thanksgiving within the Renaissance Catholic Church in England.
Oh, right.
And,
Wow, I did not know that.
And when the settlers founded the colonies in the USA, they then decided to mark it with a day of Thanksgiving.
Okay.
But it's now obviously taken a very US,
Very kind of, Americanized, capitalized approach. I think it's fair to say on that.
Entertainment, isn't it?
But if we bring it closer to home, it feels like a right time for us to talk about one of your stories that you wanted to discuss, Arj, which is when you sent me your email that you come in and you said, Shay, party season is here. How do we survive nutrition and exercise goals during this difficult time? Look, I'm going to be frank, and thank you so much. When I was doing my swimming challenge with the rest of the team, thank you, with the rest of the team here at BBC Radio London for Children in Need, we swam, took part in the 1,000-mile challenge. And thank you for your messages of support. But as we're heading into December now, I was thinking, well, I've done my bit, done the swimming. I was swimming a mile a day for 5 days. I was training for nearly 2 months. So I feel like going into December, most of us just kind of clock off fitness, don't we?
Yeah, we
Am
do.
I allowed to, Arj, or are you now here to say, no, Shay, keep swimming during Christmas?
No, I'm the man in the middle. I am completely that man that sees social life as valuable as everything else, if not more valuable. But party season is truly here, and the real reminder came from one of my clients who basically said, Erin, if you're listening, sorry, I'm really
hello to Erin. Hello.
But basically, I can only make one Friday out of 5 because it's all of the parties. And I was like, fair enough, you're a busy guy then.
Yeah.
But it really does mess with some people's routines. We like routine. We need that structure. And therefore, there's the minefield of, should I try and carry on doing what I'm doing, or should I go and see my friends and family? The truth is, find the point at which feels comfortable and don't put undue pressures on yourself to make personal bests or make new gains or anything like that. But keep the idea of having some sessions, some activity that you want to go to. And when people look at party season, for a lot of people, it's not necessarily just the enjoyment. It's actually the anxiety of, I've worked really hard. I'm going to gain all this weight that I've worked so hard to lose, etc., etc. And that anxiety is very, very upsetting for people.
Do you know, I'm so glad you mentioned that because look, I'm going to throw it out there. I've been thinking like that. I have to say, I've got a big birthday coming up in a couple of weeks. And although I haven't really planned much, I just know December for me is, I absolutely love seeing family, seeing friends, going out for as many dinners as possible. And I think you're right. I think you've hit the nail on the head. I think many of us, myself included, have been feeling anxious that I've been so healthy and fit these last 3 months. I've been really focused on these important goals of movement for me, not necessarily to lose weight, but it's real, this anxiety for a lot of people.
Yeah, and there are some strategies to help you with that. So,
such as,
well, usually these are like the key points that I would use with my clients. And I think with everything in life, we need to make sure that generic models don't fit everyone. But if you can, reflect on yourself, some of the main things. So if you have been on maybe a weight loss goal, the idea is actually to set yourself a planned weight gain target.
What does that mean?
Yeah, it sounds really counterintuitive. I've spent 11 months losing weight.
Yeah.
now I'm going to give you can gain 2 kilos, so just over 4 pounds.
Yeah.
By the time you get to January.
Happy days, so I can have my mince pies.
Yeah, definitely have your mince pies. They're not available. Well, they're available quite a lot of the year now, actually. But the idea is that everyone goes, "Oh, you're telling me I can gain weight?" And it's like, yeah, because we can do it again. You can lose your weight, and you can do whatever you need to do to feel better about yourself. And what happens is when January comes around, have they gained 2 kilos? No, they've gained 1 kilo. They've gained 0.8 kilos, and suddenly they're like, wow, I really did achieve. And we've massively ticked off anxiety because they've got permission from someone external to gain weight, and they've also managed to beat their target. The other thing is you head to a buffet table. Buffets are dangerous, and they're also some of the best things ever. The key here is to arrive slightly full, and an easy way to do that is have a protein shake, have a protein bar, have something which is very satiating. So
that's clever.
You don't nibble at absolutely everything on the table straight away.
Are you a nibbler, Philip? Because I am. As soon as I see the crackers and cheese, I just can't stop.
Yeah.
I can't resist a canapé.
Yeah. Do you know what I mean? What are they called? I can never pronounce it, so I'm going to apologise. Is it charcuterie boards? I mean, I'm vegetarian, but nowadays you can get some really good charcuterie boards, and I devour those.
I don't blame you. They're great. They're fantastic.
This is interesting. So you're saying arrive a little bit full, so then you're not going to want to stuff your face like I do.
Exactly. It's really simple. The other actual thing is to ask yourself, do I really need this? Most of us, we arrive at that buffet table and it's like you've just mentioned charcuterie there.
Yeah.
So is this an opportunity which won't happen again for the majority of the year? If so, go and enjoy the charcuterie.
Yeah.
I'm going to say that word as many times as possible. If it's a digestive biscuit and that's available to you 12 months of the year, don't ruin it. You don't need that.
Got you.
But there's items at Christmas which you're not going to have. I will always have my eggnog because I just love that taste of
totally
deliciousness, basically. And then the last thing really, and this is what you said your goal was, is make sure you move. We become more sedentary at Christmas, at festive times, so hit the dance floor loads. And I'm serious, that will make a difference. Fidget when you're with your family. You're sat around on the sofas. Move, that burns a little bit. It's called non-exercise activity thermogenesis, and it's just about movement, makes you a bit healthier. But don't sacrifice your social health.
I think those are some fantastic top tips this afternoon, and you're absolutely right. All of us need to be conscious of moving just that little bit more as we head into the festive period. I'll continue having a chat with Philip and Arj straight after Teddy Swims.
So I thought, you know what, this is actually a really interesting topic because...
I think she's amazing. She really
One story that really caught my attention this week.
My story relates to a particular TV
It's going to take away a lot of jobs.
Week in Review.
Exactly. Week in Review. Been having such a lovely chat with my guest this afternoon. Big thank you to activist and writer Philip Baldwin for coming in, and a huge thanks as well to fitness coach Arj Thiruchelvam for coming in as well. You can find both of them. For Philip, it's Philip C. Baldwin on social media, and that is PH, and then also Performance Physique for Arj. So this particular study, Arj, Philip, you and I were discussing earlier on off air, so I'm really intrigued around this recent study, which is linking, and it's quite historic, this, because it's looking at health and fitness in young people, how we were decades ago, and actually how unfortunately things are stunted now. Give us more details.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is a very recent study. It was published only in December last year. I know that sounds a year ago, but in research times that's really recent, by a man called Avery Feigenbaum. He is an amazing youth researcher. So most of the stuff he produces is about the benefits of exercise for today's children, adolescents, etc. This study is historic in the fact that it demonstrates not only direct links between the fact that screen time and lack of sports participation is directly affecting our youth and the children of today, particularly their health tomorrow, but also that for the first time in history, our children are now weaker, so that's the amount of force a muscle can generate. Cardiovascular fitness is reduced, and this naturally affects what we call their confidence to participate. So effectively, less fit, less strong, and then less willing to do the things that help them.
Gosh, that's. I mean, I'm a mum, so I'm coming at this from a perspective of a mum. That's really sad that for the first time in history, children are weaker now than they ever have been.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on this, firstly, Philip?
I think lockdown I think that had a huge impact on everyone's fitness. I mean, I stopped going to the gym for about 2.5 years. And
you and me both, actually. That's literally what happened to me. My health was totally impacted because of lockdown. Yeah.
So I think it must have been particularly challenging for children and young people.
Yeah.
Is that part of it then, Arj? Has that study kind of highlighted that area? Because it's an interesting point that Philip makes.
That's right, yes. Avery Feigenbaum, the author of the study, does mention that COVID had a significant effect. And the lack of participation afterwards. In a completely separate realm, we have Sport England, which is the national governing body.
Of course, yeah.
Sport England do an active participation survey every year, and they found that basically boys were always more interested in sport or took part in sport more so than girls, and that's in the history of the study.
Okay.
Then the first study post-COVID, women's participation and girls' participation increased post-COVID. Boys, it did increase slightly compared to COVID years, but it was significantly down on pre-COVID. So girls actually came out of COVID. Again, it's the people that were surveyed and the children that were surveyed.
Sure.
They participated slightly more. And there was obviously a very big coincidence that we had major events like the Netball World Cup, which contributed to that. And we had the Lionesses' success. And
winning.
All of these, exactly.
Can I just reiterate, winning the World Cup. They brought it home.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I always hate it when I hear individuals say, it's going to come home. No, the Lionesses brought it home. Thank you. Again, it's the mum in me, because I look at my daughter Tyra and she is absolutely, I mean, she can't get enough of sports. Sometimes it winds me up because I'm the one who has to take her at 8, 9 o'clock on a Saturday morning. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But so what are we now saying? If there's parents tuned in, grandparents, this affects all of us, society, future generations. If children are weaker, is this just the case of, right, we need to just ban all technology and phones from the hands of young kids, young boys and girls, and get them out for Saturday football and on the pitches? Or is it around conversations in schools? Because PE is compulsory, is it not?
Yeah, it's a very, very hard thing. And obviously there's a lot of things we're hearing that, schools should be doing this, schools should be doing this, schools should be doing this, and then let's take all the money away from them as well. I mean, the study in itself reads a horrible message. If I read this cycle to you, a reduction in force production means less strength later in life, functional limitations to do normal activities, reduced activity leading to more sedentary behaviours on iPads, etc., reduced physical activity leading to lower confidence to participate, greater injuries, less resilience, more health issues, disability and disease. That's a horrible cycle.
Here's the thing. There's one aspect we haven't discussed. Sports is not accessible for everyone.
Bingo.
Some people are not going to like that, but I'm coming at this from the angle of having grown up in a council estate. We didn't even have, gardens to play in.
Yeah.
There was a shared green patch in front of all of our houses in our estate, and that was all we had, with 9 or 10 other families that were living, with us.
Yep.
The only kind of access into the world of sports for me and for my brother was my school.
Yep.
My mum couldn't afford to get my brother and I brand new tennis rackets, or if we wanted to go swimming every single weekend, all of that was done via school.
Yep.
Surely that's an important part of this conversation, Arj, because it costs money to ensure that your child is taking part in sports clubs. It has the right sporting equipment. Even if you want to do something like ice skating. Do you see what I'm trying to say?
Yeah,
there is finance is a big part of this, surely.
It 100% is, because it goes further than that. It's, can your parent or your guardian spend time with you?
Exactly.
Because they're not working.
Because they're not working. Exactly.
Exactly. So I personally feel that it does have to happen in schools. I think the government need to change our requirement for sports, because the rules state around activities being available, not necessarily during the school day.
Right.
So they have to provide a club, etc., outside of 30 minutes. Well, I know plenty of kids, I coach hundreds of them, who spend about 20 minutes in the changing room, 5 minutes working out which team they're going to be in, 5 minutes on the activity, done. That's the end of the session.
Wow.
If you look back to when we were in school, a lot of PE classes were circuit training. They were really vigorous.
They were.
I'm not saying that needs to be every session, but there are benefits to our health that some of our physical education sessions are more like that, and then some we do get to play dodgeball, etc., etc. Unfortunately, we have our children in school for most of the day or in care for most of the day because we have to work. Therefore, we need them to be doing those activities during school time as part of our national curriculum.
Final thoughts on that, Philip? What do you think?
I think in London, following the 2012 Olympics, we have some really, really great sports facilities. So it's challenging for many people to access sports facilities in London, but it's even worse in rural areas. And I think that's another reason why it needs to be integrated into the curriculum.
Yeah.
Now, it's always the case, because I always love having a chat on Week in Review, that we run out of time. But before we do, there was a really important London story that you wanted to put on the agenda, Philip. This is around Groucho Club.
So the Groucho Club is potentially losing its licence. It's closed for 30 days. It's one of those London institutions. It's been around since 1985. I remember back in 2015, they very kindly let me host one of my HIV visibility dinners there, actually.
Okay.
So I only have really positive things to say about it, and I will be very, very sad if the police do end up closing the Groucho Club permanently.
What's your thoughts, Arj? Because these particular venues, whether it's something like the Groucho Club or earlier on this week we've been talking about Smithfield and Billingsgate markets, there are particular spots in London. The venues are integral history to London.
Yeah. I'm going to be completely honest. Before the story broke yesterday morning, I think it was.
Yeah.
I didn't know anything about it.
Really?
I'd never, for some reason, I hadn't had an invitation to attend or anything. But these establishments around London, around the country, are closing. A lot of these, big sites of historic moments, whether it's dance clubs, whatever, are closing. Now we need to perhaps revisit them and think about renovation rather than destroying and removing and building your new office blocks, etc., because we need to make sure that we look after who we were.
Yes.
And what we've established over those times.
I know this is going to be a conversation we're going to continue when I'm back next week on Radio London. Philip, Arj, so lovely having you here. Thank you for joining me this afternoon.
Thank you again for having me.
Thank you, Arj,
so
as well.
much.
And you can follow the guys on their social media. If you'd like more details, it's Philip C. Baldwin and also Performance Physique.
Thank you very much for listening to the Performance Physique podcast. Don't forget, you can find us on Instagram. It's at @performance_physique. You can find us on Facebook, Performance Physique, or if you just head to performancephysique.co.uk, and we'll do our very best to help you. It will mean the world to me, though, if you can share this podcast with one friend this week. Right, for now, take care.